live in groups, communicate, make tools, and even use weapons. Yet chimpanzee evolution stopped short of becoming human. How did we get out of the trees? Why are they still there? In a moment, we'll search for answers to these questions. Between chimpanzees and ourselves are remarkable similarities in child raising, communication, and social structure. To study these similarities and other patterns of behavior, the University of Amsterdam has sent a special chimpanzee expedition to West Africa. Inside their blind, animal behaviorists can watch and film chimps. Dr. Jo van Orshoven, leader of the expedition, records his observations. Always within calling distance of their mothers, chimpanzee youngsters use the branches and vines as practice bars, developing the muscle coordination they will need later on. This one's around 2 years old and already able to control its movements and balance, to some extent. Although it can walk and move about in the trees, a young chimp travels on its mother's back until it's almost 5 years old. Sometimes it returns to its baby position, clinging to its mother's belly. Sheltered by her body, the young chimp is closer to its milk supply and protected, even from rain. Millions of years ago, our ape-like ancestors may have carried their offspring in much the same way. Within a chimpanzee society, close and enduring relationships exist only between mothers and offspring. There can be a great deal of affection and even tenderness among adults, but these associations are constantly shifting. Often grown-up males and some females move over to neighboring groups. Among the many social bonds, grooming is particularly important. It serves a double purpose: friendship and hygiene. Patiently, males and females clean each other's wounds, remove bits of old skin, and dislodge the painful ticks that burrow into their fur. The one who's being groomed feels greatly at ease. On top of the social system are the strong males. Each constantly reinforces his place in the hierarchy. Signaling fury, the hairs of the older males stand on end, making them appear larger, more threatening. Hitting the ground is the same as pounding a table is for us. It isn't a serious fight, just a show of strength that helps to maintain order in the group. Another means of keeping the peace is communal mating. Extending his hand, this male reassures the female who presents herself to him, as she will to all the adult males in the group. There's no jealousy, for among chimpanzees there is no permanent bond between male and female. To explore the similarities between chimpanzees and man, the scientists have set up an experiment in which they place a chimp-like puppet where the animals would find it. With typical touching and sniffing gestures, they investigate. To the chimps, the puppet must resemble a dead chimpanzee baby. Unlike other animals who regard their dead without fear, chimpanzees act disturbed and apprehensive. Nothing definite is known about what chimpanzees in the wild do with their dead. Scientists have observed that mothers sometimes carry their dead children for days, wandering around in seeming confusion and bewilderment. Could they possibly have some notion of what life and death mean? In this instance, as so often in science, the experiment raises more questions than it answers. One purpose of the chimpanzee expedition is to find clues to what the behavior of our own ape ancestors might have been. Tool making provides an example of similarities between chimps and ourselves. Once man was thought to be the only tool-making animal. Now we know that chimpanzees also make and use them. In this youngster's attempt to twist off a branch, we can see the crude beginnings of what has become technology with us. Here, a little stick is purposely used to probe a knothole. There may be tasty termites or wild honey inside. Our early ancestors may have used similar tools to obtain food beyond their reach, but they also discovered a deadlier use, as weapons. Do chimpanzees use weapons? In a moment, we'll see. To determine whether chimpanzees use weapons, scientists devised an experiment using a stuffed leopard. Chimpanzees fear leopards as their mortal enemies. Screeching furiously from the safety of the trees, they try to frighten the intruder away with threat calls. Finally, one chimp makes a threatening gesture, dropping a branch. But this leopard isn't moved. Do they sense anything strange? Will they attack? A real leopard would already have been frightened away by the noise. Releasing their anger, the chimps begin to attack, throwing branches as missiles. This peculiar leopard demands closer inspection, and the chimps approach, displaying typical caution. This male even tries to use a small tree as a weapon. Now, for the first time, a chimp lines up his target and then makes a quick retreat to the trees. Throughout the fight, the chimps repeat the pattern of attacking and then retreating to the safety of the trees where they regroup for the next onslaught. He could hit, but he doesn't. In his excitement, this chimp breaks off a stick, then loses it. Even a mother with child joins the fight. Her intention's clear, but she doesn't succeed in breaking off the branch. This one waves its weapon like a flag. Whatever the technique, it's clear that chimpanzees can use weapons skillfully. This time the stick, instead of a weapon, becomes a tool for examining the enemy. Are they beginning to realize that a real leopard would move, fight back? Finally convinced that the leopard is dead, they give up their weapons. With customary gestures, touching and sniffing, they investigate the beast. What kind of leopard is this? The fight is over. Calm returns to the group. Through this unique experiment, animal behaviorists have proven that chimps can use weapons and mount a defense. But the way they fight may be determined by their environment. Do chimps in the savannah further to the south use the same fighting technique? Scientists want to find out whether the change in environment makes also for a change in defense tactics. Here, there are not many tall trees to which the chimps can flee. Before they begin the experiment, the scientists measure the area in front of their blinds so that they can tell later on just how far sticks were thrown. A steel rope connects the hidden stuffed leopard with the blind, where scientists can pull it out at any time. Cameraman Peter Farrar gets set as Jo van Orshoven prepares to pull out the fake leopard. Here in the savannah, chimps don't even try to flee into the small trees. Instead, they band together, touching each other on the mouth in reassurance and a promise of mutual support. Then the first missile is hurled. Wavering between fear and courage, they retreat after each attack and make threat calls like their rainforest relatives. But unlike them, they make no attempt to climb the trees. Hitting the ground becomes a substitute for hitting the enemy. One by one, the savannah chimps, both males and females, rush in to attack the fake leopard. Scratching, a sign of uncertainty. Each time they repeat a familiar pattern, one similar to their cousins in the rainforest. Attacking, retreating, threatening. But the fight lasts much longer than in the rainforest. Savannah chimps seem more aggressive, almost organized as they move in closer and closer. Reassurance of mutual support is as important to chimpanzees as it is to us. How exactly do they use their weapons? Using either the left or right hand, they throw from below, almost like a bowler. Holding a stick like a sword, they hit from above. Animal behaviorists believe that our earliest ancestors probably fought in the same way. Only later did they develop techniques which the chimpanzees never learned, such as stabbing or throwing a spear. Chimpanzees use weapons only to fight predators, never to fight each other. Man doesn't make such a distinction. In the savannah, as in the rainforest, aggression finally yields to curiosity. Here, too, they examine the stuffed leopard thoroughly, inspecting every part of its body. Comparing its odor with the smells they already know, they try to identify it. We usually think of wild animals as having a keener sense of smell than man, but the chimp's nose is no better than ours. Maybe they have learned that this enemy poses no threat. The expedition's last experiment involves a 4-year-old male chimp who was born in Africa, orphaned, and adopted as a pet by Jo van Orshoven. Jo named the chimp Koos and brought him up in Amsterdam. The scientists wanted to find out whether Koos would readjust to his native environment. He didn't. Showing no interest in joining other chimpanzees, Koos stays close to Jo, whom he considers his foster mother. Like other chimps, Koos likes grapefruit, but he was taken to Europe before he learned how to peel them. Jo has to do it for him. Does Koos have any of the instincts of a wild chimpanzee? To find out, the animal behaviorists have made Koos the center of an experiment. To protect him and keep him from getting lost, they've put Koos inside a cage which is placed in front of the hidden fake leopard. He extends his hand as if in friendship as the wild chimps come closer. But they ignore him, for they've never seen one of their own kind inside a cage. Like other chimps, Koos does display instinctive curiosity, always trying out new things. One of the new things happens quite unexpectedly to be the rope that's attached to the stuffed leopard. The other chimpanzees seem to sense that something strange is about to happen. In this situation, Koos shows neither the fear nor the aggression that mark the reactions of his wild cousins. Perhaps they remember the attack they made on the stuffed leopard a few days ago. Chimps are intelligent enough to learn from experience, and in this instance, they probably know that using weapons isn't effective. But they're still too angry to ignore the leopard, and they resort to an entirely new kind of fighting that hasn't been observed before, attacking with their bare hands. The females are particularly aggressive. Taking to the trees, a male begins a branch-shaking threat display used to intimidate enemies. Among these wild chimpanzees, the mere sight of a leopard is enough to arouse all their aggressive instincts. His expression shows how angry he really is. Although the model can't fight back, the chimps continue to engage in a kind of show fighting, as if they have an instinctive need to release pent-up anger. In trying to answer the question why chimpanzees haven't become more human, a few scientists have come up with a fascinating theory. One based on these observations that Savannah chimps are better fighters than those in the rainforest. It's possible that our ape ancestors evolved into human beings because in order to compete and survive in the savannah, they had to leave the forest and become hunters on open ground. Perhaps our ancestors drove the chimpanzees' forebears back into the forest where life was so easy there was no need to evolve any further. Studies of chimpanzee aggression have just begun, and, as we have seen before, they raise more questions than they answer. But these investigations in the savannas and rainforests of Africa may prove vital to us in the long run, for human aggression is an all too pervasive problem.